long-term care. Reb Bates took another swig of whiskey and watched the mindless screen's entertainment behind the bar. His neck still ached 4 weeks after he was fired. The company's neck weights hadn't worked for shit. His 44-year-old feet ached like an arthritic 65-year-old, and he hadn't experienced a woman for 5 years. Down on your luck? The 30-year-old interloper to his right seemed mildly interested in the welfare of Mr. Bates. "Yeah, you might say so. 2 whiskeys over here," responded the down-and-out unemployed healthcare worker. 71 seconds later, the two were ingesting new whiskeys, compliments of he who sat to the left of the two. "Lunacare ain't nothing but a bunch of bastards. They fired me about 2 weeks ago. And for what? What, poor performance? Hell no. I'd been with them for 2 years. Was it for sexual harassment? Hell no. I've always been good to women." Reb moved to an almost intimate distance from the listener. His voice softened, and he said, "I've always been firmly convinced that women have been picked on for 6 million years." The two men laughed as the alcohol replaced the normal elements in the bloodstream. Once in a while you gotta bash someone or someone, right? "How'd you get the axe?" The nervous-looking computer nerd stared intently at the thin, aging male, pale man without a plan. Cavernous, bloodshot eyes stared at the man. Inches below the animate globs, lips started to move. "You really want to know? You really want to know? I got fired for the strangest of reasons." Reb's voice began to slur. "I didn't piss off the boss. I didn't cuss the boss out. I didn't break anything. I didn't do any of those things." "Well, what did you do?" Reb shuffled on the bar stool, whisked down the last drops of whiskey, and said, "All in good time, all in good time. Bartender, 2 more whiskeys." The unintroduced speaker partner seemed to perk up now. His interest was aroused. He felt that he might be in for a good story. He would not be disappointed. Another minute or so went by, and the next round of poison was delivered to the 2 recipients. "Well, I'll tell you." Reb took another sip of whiskey. The axe seemed to be a primer for the gushing that was to come. "Have you heard of Oceanus Prosolarium Care Center?" "Sure, I see their ads on TV all the time. That's a place that provides care to those who can't walk here on Earth, but have enough locomotion to walk in low gravity, like the moon." "Am I on the right path?" "Exactly. By the way, what's your name?" "I'm Hector." The story receptor held out his hand, and both performed the empty bourgeois gesture of the handshake. Reb continued, "As I said before, I've been working for Lunacare for about 2 years. I started right at the Oceana Procellarum Care Center after about 2 weeks of training in Austin. I have to admit the work was rewarding at first. To actually see people who had weak legs able to walk seemed like a miracle. And, Jesus, the pool was great. It was like you were flying through the air when you were swimming. And there were those who couldn't breathe well here on Earth. Up there they could function as normal individuals. Some of them worked for the company doing odd jobs and paperwork. It was a win-win situation for Lunacare, scab labor and income from high-priced care. It was just like the prison industry back here on Earth. Oh, it had its downside, like those leg weights, arm weights, and neck weights worn by all the staff to compensate for the low gravity. My neck still hurts, and I've been back for about a month. As I say, lack of gravity has its downside." Hector was all ears. "Things were going pretty good. I spent the Earth weekends off at the casino at Kepler. I wasn't too lucky. I also took a trip over to Mare Cericium. There's a hell of a mare, if you like mares. Anyway, I was in the rehabilitation wing working with the weak-legged patients. It was truly rewarding." "What happened?" Reb turned on a somewhat sincere look for an aging drunk and whispered, "I was fired. I was fired because I found out the truth about Lunacare and that damn Oceanus Procellarum Center. They're a bunch of damn liars. They are frauds. Do you know about their levels of care, quality care, standard care, and economy care?" "Hell, Reb, everybody knows about that. It's been on TV enough. It's just that you get more service on the higher levels." Reb's head was a-bobbing like it wasn't so. "No, no, no, it's nothing like that. Here's the plain facts. I mean the plain facts." Reb's hand was now shaking as he imbibed his next swig of whiskey. "Quality care is as advertised. For $35,000 a month, you ought to get what you pay for. The well-to-do are taken well care of on the moon at the center. There's no fraud involved. And the same goes for standard care. But economy care don't get shit. They don't go to Oceanus Procellarum. They don't get care." Reb became animated like a shark in a frenzy. He was tapping his hands and feet. Perspiration was dripping now from his forehead. "Hector, do you know what they get?" No, no, Reb, I don't know. Reb started to laugh, they get a bed at Lunacare's place at the old Barlow Ranch in Nevada. That's what they get. And there they are, 100 miles from nowhere. And they get it till they croak or till the money runs out and Lunacare rubs them out. There are at this minute about 200 of those poor sons of bitches vegetating in the desert. And nobody ain't going to find anything out about it. Shit, their security is tighter than a bull's ass. You can't get within 30 miles of the place without them knowing it. I tell you, the company ain't got no heart. How do you know that? Oh, I know. I know the truth. See, I sneaked down to accounting one night. Sure, I might have had a few too many, but I found out the real facts. On the computer was a listing of the Barlow sham. I even sneaked out a chip of the whole operation in my shoe. There's these goddamn beds where the patients lie until they're timely or untimely deaths, like the nursing homes of the last century. And all the time these poor creatures are lying on their deathbeds, Lunacare is collecting $8,500 a month from family or insurance or whatever. Reb almost had tears in his eyes. Hector finished his whiskey and ordered 2 more. Reb was ready for another one, too. What are you going to do? The confessing inebriate moved his face close to Hector and softly said, I'm taking the chip and all the info to the Chugog News Network tomorrow. I'm going to put those bastards out of business. But first, I must take a piss. Reb got off the stool and headed for the toilet. Hector remained behind. His kidneys were more than a decade younger. He returned a few minutes later and with deft accuracy made his way back to his perch without falling. Shitheads like that need to be put out of business. Hector, don't you believe that something has to be done? I couldn't be in more agreement with you on that. The two finished up the latest whiskeys. Hector noticed that Reb was getting paler and paler. As a matter of fact, in a few minutes, Reb fell off the stool. He was lying on 911. Hector slowly slipped out of the bar amid the pandemonium. It's okay, Mr. Bates. We're going to take good care of you. Reb opened his eyes in the small bed in the dormitory. The drab walls and fluorescent walls reminded him of something, but he wasn't sure. He looked through the small, sealed-in window by his bed. All he could see was endless desert outside. Where am I? That's not important now. What's important is that you need care and that you are getting it. It was fortunate that your medical insurance hadn't run out from the previous job. As a matter of fact, you are paid up for as long as it takes for you to get well. The white-frocked care person seemed to exude a quasi-sincerity so manifest in the American medical racket. Reb's eyes became immediately bloodshot. He tried to get up from his bed, but he was tied down. He struggled, but to no avail. You son of a bitch, this is Lunacare. You are a very perceptive person, Mr. Bates. Right you are. But you have nothing to worry about. As a previously trusted employee, you must know that Lunacare takes care of its own. Reb turned his head to his right. There must have been about 50 beds in the room. The fluorescent lights hummed their tune above each and every bed. At the end of the hall was an equally sterile, enclosed room, like an office. He could see 2 men talking in the small room at the end of the dorm. One of the men seemed to recognize him. The suit and tie man walked to the small window and stared directly at Reb and waved. It was Hector.